The late shift stretched on, a silent, oppressive weight. The earlier system malfunction had eaten up hours, and management's push for overtime meant I was one of the few still lingering past midnight. Every extra minute was a step closer to a much-needed bonus, a thought that kept me glued to my screen, even as the last colleague's footsteps faded. The building's quiet wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that amplified every creak, every hum, my keyboard clicks, the distant drone of the air conditioning, the soft whir of the water cooler. I was alone on the 14th floor, a familiar but unsettling solitude. I'd done it before, but tonight felt different. I kept glancing at the clock, the screen's glare burning my eyes. I remember leaning back, a deep stretch, longing for the moment I could leave. Hunger gnawed, muscles ached. I was done. I saved the final report, closed my applications, and began gathering my belongings. That's when it happened. A flicker. Not the gentle dying pulse of a faulty bulb, but a sharp, sudden wink. The lights at the far end of the floor, near the break room, blinked once, then plunged into complete darkness. I froze, my breath catching. It was too abrupt. I scanned the vast office. Every other section remained brightly lit. Only that distant corner, the break room area, was now a void. The printer's indicator light still glowed, and I could hear the low thrum of a refrigerator, confirming the power was still on. I considered dismissing it, perhaps a tripped breaker, but before I could take a single step, a sound sliced through the silence, stopping me cold. It was subtle at first, a soft drag, then a sharp, metallic squeak, the sound of metal scraping against tile. One of the swivel chairs, far across the room, was moving. I saw it clearly, even in the dim, ambient light. It rolled out from beneath a desk, slowly, deliberately, until it turned to face my direction. I didn't blink. I didn't even breathe. The chair stopped. Nothing else moved. My first instinct was to scream, to bolt. Instead, I gripped my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked. Not a run, not yet. I forced myself to maintain a semblance of calm. I didn't look back at the chair. I didn't want to see if it moved again. Whatever had caused that, a person, or something far more unsettling, I had no desire to discover. The elevator was out of the question. It would take too long. I headed straight for the emergency stairwell. I pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. A wave of cold, stale air hit me. The stairwell was barely lit, a single fluorescent tube flickering erratically above. I started descending, fast, my focus singular. I skipped steps when I could, my legs burning. I just needed to reach the ground floor, to the garage, to my car. Then I heard it. The stairwell door above me slammed open. I didn't see anything, but the heavy, rapid footsteps echoed, growing closer. Someone was running after me. I stopped, turning my head. There he was, the night attendant, Mr. Vance. He looked unnervingly calm, too calm, a sheen of sweat on his brow, but not from exertion. He wore that unsettling, almost predatory smirk he sometimes displayed. He held the railing, seemingly unbothered by the climb. He saw me, frozen halfway down the stairs, and began his slow descent. Heard something, didn't you? The lights, the chair. You're not imagining things. He stopped 2 steps above me, his voice attempting a comforting tone, but it felt rehearsed, controlled, like words he'd practiced countless times. I didn't answer. My body was rigid, my bag still clutched like a shield. How do you know about the chair? He started walking again, slow and casual. Been noticing things for a while now. Thought it was just me, but I saw it on the monitors too. This building, it's not right. There's something here, not human. We're not safe out in the open. I can show you. Let's go back upstairs. The security office has reinforced doors, monitors. You'll see what I mean. I took a step down. He took two. I said, "No." He paused for a second, a fleeting, almost humorous smile on his face. Then the corners of his mouth dropped. I saw the shift in his eyes. The smile was a mask, and now I was seeing whatever lay beneath it. I turned and continued my descent, faster now. He didn't say anything else. I heard the heavy thud of his footsteps behind me. Then came the shove. It wasn't a gentle push. It was violent, sudden. My foot missed a step. I fell forward, my side smashing against the concrete. I tumbled down the stairs, my bag flying, my left wrist twisting at an unnatural angle. Pain exploded through my arm and chest. I screamed, more from shock than the agony. I looked up. Mr. Vance stood above me, halfway down the stairs, his face contorted with what looked like concern, but it was a grotesque parody. He tried to play it off. "I didn't push you, I swear. That thing did. You felt it, didn't you?" He came closer, offering a hand. I recoiled, my left arm useless. I used the wall to push myself up, my breathing ragged. That's when he stopped pretending. He knew I didn't believe him. His jaw clenched, his hand dropped. He looked different now, truly dangerous. Without warning, he lunged. He grabbed my hair, yanking me up as if I weighed nothing. I screamed again, louder this time, but the sound echoed uselessly in the confined space. He shoved me against the wall. I kicked. I scratched. My good hand clawed at his face. But he didn't release his grip. His voice changed, dropping to a low, guttural growl. "You think I'm crazy? You think I'd hurt you? I've done nothing but protected you." He dragged me up the stairs by my arm. I stumbled, tried to resist, but I couldn't fight back effectively. He kept whispering, telling me this was necessary, that I'd understand soon. He spoke of a presence in the building, how it controlled people, made them do things. That's why he had to keep me safe. I bit his shoulder, hard. He cried out and let go for a second. I didn't waste it. I bolted down the stairs, one arm hanging uselessly, limping. I could see the exit sign below, the ground floor. I was almost there. My legs burned, but I didn't stop. I heard him scream behind me, his voice no longer calm, cracking with raw rage. I hit the last landing, turned the corner, and he slammed into me again, full force. We crashed against the wall. He was on top of me before I could even begin to rise. His hands wrapped around my neck. He didn't choke with desperation. He did it slowly, methodically, as if measuring how much pressure I could endure. "You're not going to die. I just need you quiet." I fought him, clawing at his face, his eyes, anything. He squeezed harder. My vision pulsed. My limbs grew heavy. I couldn't breathe. He whispered to me again, incoherent ramblings about sharing space and waiting for it to pass. I felt my body cease its struggle. Darkness consumed me. The next thing I registered was the faint glow of monitors. My face was wet, my throat raw. I was tied to a chair in what I recognized as the security office. He paced back and forth, muttering to himself, checking his watch, wiping sweat from his face. I couldn't speak, couldn't scream. My mouth was covered, my wrists bound. Pain radiated from my arm and ribs. I couldn't tell how much time had passed. He continued his monologue, claiming this was the safest room, that I'd thank him, that we'd just wait until the presence left, and then we'd go home together. I could do nothing but stare. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt soaked. He had no plan. I heard the sirens first, distant, then growing rapidly closer. He froze. Lights flickered outside the door, red and blue. He looked at the security screens, but they were blank. He must have cut the feeds himself. He swore, pulled open a drawer, and grabbed something heavy. Then he changed his mind, throwing it across the room. The door burst open. Armed officers. They moved fast, shouting commands. Mr. Vance raised his hands, but it was too late. They slammed him down, cuffed him, dragged him out. while he yelled about the presents, about how they were all in danger. No one listened. Someone cut my restraints. Another officer gently removed the covering from my mouth. I couldn't speak yet. They wrapped a jacket around me, guided me out, step by step. They asked questions, but I couldn't answer, not yet. I could barely process that I was alive. Later, I learned the building's access system showed I never exited. That's what triggered everything. Mr. Vance had disabled the cameras, but he hadn't reported the system anomaly. That, combined with no record of my exit, was enough to dispatch a unit. They arrived just in time. Not because of any spectral intervention, but because he was sloppy. They say he's in a facility now, undergoing evaluation. He's facing charges, but he still insists he was helping me, that he saved me from the building's influence. They say he was obsessed, that he had notes, recordings, clips he'd saved of me walking in and out. He had been watching me for months. I never went back to that office. I quit, changed my phone number, reinforced the locks on my home. For a long time, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that chair move. But worse than that, I kept seeing his face, calm, calculating, as if nothing he did was wrong. I don't know if something supernatural truly happened that night. I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter if the building was haunted. What truly terrified me wasn't the flickering lights or the moving chair. What scared me was how easily a person could twist a story, use it as an excuse to do whatever they wanted, how close they had been the whole time, how perfectly they had hidden their true nature. You can turn on all the lights in the world, but it won't help you if the monster is already inside, lurking in plain sight. Back in 2019, I worked the night shift at a customer service center in a mid-sized city in Oregon. I was 24 at the time, and the job mostly involved answering support tickets and occasionally handling late-night calls for a regional electronics chain. The office was located on the 5th floor of a downtown office building that was pretty much empty by 8 p.m. It was just me and one other rep, Marcus, during those late shifts. We each had our cubicle and took turns answering the incoming calls. It was boring, but easy work. Until one night, something happened that still makes me feel sick when I think about it. It was a Tuesday night, sometime around 2 a.m. Marcus had just left the floor to grab a coffee downstairs, so I was alone in the room. The lights buzzed overhead, and the only sound was the quiet hum of the computers. That's when I got a call from a number that didn't match our routing system. Usually the calls came through with customer IDs, timestamps, and all that. This one just said, unavailable. Thinking it was a glitch or maybe a prank, I answered anyway. Thank you for calling. This is Danny. How can I help you? There was nothing but silence on the line. No background noise, no breathing, just dead air. Hello? I asked again. And then a voice finally spoke. It was a low male voice, completely calm. Hi, Danny. I've missed you. My heart immediately dropped. I didn't recognize the voice, but something about the tone made my skin crawl. It wasn't threatening exactly. It was familiar, personal, like someone who thought he knew me well. I paused. I'm sorry. Do I know you? He chuckled softly. You don't remember me? That's disappointing. I remember you. You still take the number 4 bus home, right? I froze in my chair. The number 4 bus. That was how I got home every night. It wasn't listed anywhere in my company files or even on public-facing social media. I didn't post stuff like that. I didn't respond. My hand hovered over the end call button, but I didn't press it. Danny, you shouldn't walk alone. That city park by your street. Not safe at night. So many places to hide. My breath caught in my throat. He knew where I lived. I hung up. Instantly, I messaged Marcus, who said he was on his way back up. I told him I got a creepy call, and he brushed it off as a prank. Said it happened sometimes. But I knew this wasn't a prank. I couldn't concentrate for the rest of the shift. I kept checking over my shoulder, glancing at the elevator, expecting someone to show up. But the floor stayed quiet. The call never returned. I filed an incident report with our supervisor, who said he'd look into it. That weekend, I stayed at my sister's place across town. I didn't want to be in my apartment alone. I didn't tell her the full story. I just said someone was bothering me. Monday night came around, and I was back on shift. This time, Marcus was running late, so I was alone again. And again, around 2 a.m., another call. Unknown caller. I didn't want to pick up, but something compelled me to. Maybe I wanted to know what he wanted. "Danny," the voice said, even before I could introduce myself. "You shouldn't have left Friday night without saying goodbye." I muted my mic. My hands were shaking. Then he added, "By the way, that navy blue hoodie you wore yesterday looks good on you." I immediately ended the call. My entire body felt ice cold. He'd seen me recently, maybe even followed me. I called Marcus. He answered right away this time, and I told him everything. He rushed to the office and stayed with me the rest of the shift. The next morning, I went straight to the building's security office and demanded to see the footage. They were reluctant, but I insisted. We scanned through hours of grainy footage from the past few nights. Most of it was uneventful, just staff coming and going. But on Thursday night, around 1:55 a.m., we saw something. A tall man in a black coat and cap walked past the front desk without checking in. He went straight to the elevator, but never used his keycard. The elevator didn't move. He just stood there for a minute, staring at the security camera, then turned around and walked out. No one knew who he was. Security said the cameras didn't catch him outside, meaning he must have ducked the exterior view. The police were called, but they said, unless he made direct threats, there wasn't much they could do. I had no name, no number, nothing to trace. My manager offered to temporarily switch me to a day shift. I agreed. A week went by with no incident. Then, one morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. An AirTag had been detected, moving with me. I don't even own an AirTag. I panicked. I searched my bag, my jacket, and my shoes. Nothing. Until I checked my car. There it was, taped to the underside of my rear bumper. I called the police, and they took it in as evidence. But again, no fingerprints, no active trace, just an unregistered tag. After that, I quit the job. I moved in with my sister for a while, then got a new apartment under a different name. To this day, I don't know who that man was, but he knew too much. And the worst part, he never actually did anything. He just watched and waited. Back in the fall of 2007, in a quiet suburb of Vancouver, Washington, something truly strange started happening to a high school sophomore named Tessa Holloway. It all started when her closest friends began asking about bizarre, cryptic texts. They said she'd sent them the night before. But there was one major issue. Tessa hadn't sent any of them. Her outbox was completely empty. At first, she assumed it was just a glitch, or maybe someone spoofing her number. But then the situation took a dark turn. Her phone began ringing randomly throughout the day. When she'd pick up, there'd be a pause, followed by a man's voice. It was raspy, almost mechanical, and deeply unsettling. He wouldn't say much, just a few words, but what he did say made her blood run cold. He described exactly what she was doing at that moment. "I like that blue sweater," he whispered one afternoon. She was wearing a blue sweater, inside her bedroom, with the blinds shut. Another time he said, "You shouldn't be alone in the house." She wasn't alone. Her parents were upstairs, but how could he possibly know that? The calls were all marked as restricted. No name, no number, just that. Her parents, Doug and Jenna Holloway, thought it might be a prank, maybe even a school friend messing around. But then Jenna started receiving strange calls herself. One day, while she was slicing lemons in the kitchen, her phone rang. She answered, and the same voice said, "I prefer limes." It wasn't just creepy, it was personal. Someone was watching them. Things spiraled from there. The family noticed their phones were acting wrong. Ringtones changed on their own. Phones would turn on by themselves. Sometimes in the middle of the night, they'd wake up to buzzing, even when their devices were shut off. They contacted the police. Officers came by, took the phones, and promised to trace any future calls. But that only made things worse, because when the calls came again and were traced, what the police found shocked everyone. The trace led back to Tessa's own phone, the same phone that was supposedly off. Even when it was powered down and locked in a drawer, it was somehow making outgoing calls. Police told the Holloways to replace all their phones, but that wasn't financially possible for them. They decided to stick it out and hoped the harassment would fade on its own. It didn't. Instead, the calls became more threatening. One night, Jenna answered a call around 2 a.m. The same raspy voice said, "We hate you. You're going to die. We're going to make you suffer." She immediately shut her phone off, but it didn't matter. Seconds later, it powered itself back on. The caller was still there. Eventually, the family began removing the batteries from their phones at night just to get some sleep. But even that didn't bring peace. The next terrifying escalation came when their neighbors, the Wilsons, got involved. Their son, Liam, attended the same high school as Tessa. One night, Mrs. Wilson received a call from the same restricted number. The voice this time wasn't threatening. It was something worse. It was a warning. "There will be a shooting at Liam's school tomorrow morning." The caller listed the school by name. The Wilsons were horrified. They alerted the school immediately, and the building went into a soft lockdown the next morning. Thankfully, nothing happened, but the damage was done. The fear, the doubt, was already inside them. The Holloways kept reporting everything to the police, but the investigation stalled. There were no leads. Then came the final straw, something that still haunts them to this day. One night, Jenna got another call. This time, it wasn't the raspy voice. It was a recording of a private conversation between her husband Doug and one of the investigating detectives. The call played their words back, verbatim. It was a conversation that had taken place inside their home, with no one else present. The caller wasn't just stalking them, he was listening to them, somehow. When the family played the recording for the police, they were shaken. One officer even muttered under his breath, "This guy's mocking us." And he was. Every call felt more like a taunt than a threat, like he was 2 steps ahead and enjoying the game. Eventually, suspicion even turned inward. Detectives floated the theory that someone inside the family might be behind it, or maybe a close friend, or a neighbor with access, but no one could explain how the phones were being used, especially when turned off, or how conversations were being recorded. Despite multiple federal laws being broken, law enforcement admitted they were out of their depth. Cybercrime in 2007 wasn't as advanced as it is now. The police chief even told a local reporter, "We're dumbfounded. We've never seen anything like this before." And then, the media lost interest. With no suspect, no arrest, and no clear motive, the story just disappeared. To this day, the Holloways have no idea who was behind the calls. Theories range from a tech-savvy neighbor to a stalker who hacked their network, but none of them explain how deeply personal the messages were, or how the caller could access phones that weren't even powered on. It's a terrifying reminder that the very devices we rely on for safety and connection can also become tools of fear and violation. You carry your phone with you everywhere. It holds your memories, your photos, your passwords, and your private thoughts. And with the right tools, a stranger can turn that tiny device into a window into your life. So if your phone ever starts acting strange, if you ever get a call that just says restricted, or someone on the other end describes what you're doing right now. You might want to ask yourself, who's watching me? And worse, what do they want?